Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of System Link for Wednesday, the 25th of June, 2025. I am your host, Jonathan Garrett from Burly Media, joined as always by my co-host, Mike Hazelton from the Xbox Guide. Mike, how are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, you.
Cooking right now. It is toasty times in the Burly Bird studios.
Not in a good way. I see.
But I'm cooking about some things that we're going to discuss tonight. Let me
All
get
right.
you ready, pal. Let's dive into our headlines. So the big one is become a staple of our platter. Rematch has just dropped. Just seeing you game with passion in chat there, saying you're addicted to Rematch. So am I. So are we. We're loving it, and it's a testament to a great game if it can tick the following boxes. Does it give me the one more go feel? Yes, it does. It makes me want to come back for one more go. Does it enrage me when randoms that I'm not communicating with do stupid things and don't play as a team? Absolutely yes. Much like in the finals, I have the similar reactions in that game. Yes, that's happening too. So that's another box tick. That shows I'm invested. And finally, is it something where already I feel challenged? Like I'm starting to play ranked mode and I'm consistently being bested and outthought, and it's pushing me to be better. And again, that's a big tick. So it's hitting the expected beats in terms of becoming a staple in our gaming and certainly in our discourse as well here on the channel. But we've also got to look at the fact that it has come out of the gate from just a purely sales perspective and in terms of public perception, really, really strong. We've had 3 million unique players now since launch, which is a fantastic number for what is a relatively small dev. You know, this is Slow Clap. This is the team behind Sifu. Not a particularly huge studio, very much independent still, and that's a fantastic number. Obviously bolstered by its inclusion into Game Pass. I don't know if it's PlayStation Plus though. I don't know.
Think so. No, it's definitely not. So it's 1 million sales and 3 million players. So good to get. I don't think they quite tally up in terms of when they were given, but good to see kind of the impact of Game Pass there. And yeah, it's not. Pretty sure it's not PlayStation Plus. So yeah, it's an instant hit with me really. I mean, I've got a few niggles with it. It's hard not to compare it with Rocket League, and Rocket League was just really polished when it launched, and this isn't polished in the same sort of way, like the crossplay thing, but also navigational stuff in the menus and the replays, and a little bit of network stuff as well, maybe. But from the gameplay perspective, I think there's maybe a couple of exploits that they're going to look at, but it's really solid. And like you say, I've had a couple of late nights just being unable to stop playing. So I was because you played it before launch quite a lot, didn't you? So I felt I needed to get some practice in, which I was doing. But more recently, the last few nights, I think I've come to the conclusion that I don't want to play with randoms anymore because it's just quite a miserable experience unless you get a really good team, and then you lose them as soon as you kind of finish that game. So people don't pass. People try and skill move all the way up the pitch.
I find that so challenging. I really do. Particularly when you create opportunities, you either go on a run or you try to be predictable, and they just don't recognise the open space that you've created. And that led to some, when we play it, there's been some very verbal moments of frustration. And I'd like to agree with you in terms of some of the polish. I think particularly the UI and the menu navigation that you mentioned, part of it still feels a little early access. It feels like placeholder, some of that stuff, and it doesn't, like, there's a little thing that really frustrates me when a game ends and you're trying to look at the scoreboard and it keeps cutting back to your progression screen. It's obviously a glitch. It's not a design choice. And if it is a design choice, it's a terrible one. But just little things like that where you just want to see your stats and you want to get into that, and it's requiring constant switching back and forth between menus that are auto-selecting themselves. And that's just one tiny little thing in amongst an issue with, I think, the way the game is laid out and the navigation through those menus. I find the customization screen as well really convoluted to try and dig into when you're trying to select certain things. It's really odd.
Yeah, and it's it feels like a free-to-play game as well, which doesn't help. Like we're currently in season 0, which also makes it seem like it's early access. But I feel like that there is a risk when games go into Game Pass like this that it's a premium game, but it's going into Game Pass, so they know they're going to have a significant player base, as if it was a free-to-play game. It's almost like a hybrid model where they can kind of treat it as free-to-play.
Yes.
They can have quite heavy premium currency or whatever, and try and monetize it, monetize the Game Pass audience.
Yeah. While keeping it budget price for those that are buying outside the sub. It does evoke
Yeah.
Knockout City in many ways. The first 2 years of that game, where it launched into EA Play and Game Pass Ultimate on day one, but launched for $24.99 or $29.99, I think it was, for the deluxe edition.
Yeah, and Rocket League was obviously the same.
Yep, premium title before free to play
originally.
Yeah, but it launched into PlayStation Plus, where it discovered it. I do think that approach works, but yes, it's almost like the monetization side of it can be ignored. It is just a typical store. There's no battle pass. Or no, there isn't. There is a battle pass.
Yeah.
So no, I'll take that back. That does evoke. It does. That part makes me think it was free to play, and then they decided to charge for it. Much like I think Concord, in many ways, behaved and was presented like a free to play game, and then they decided to charge for it. So there is elements of that, but we've seen the hybrid approach work well when they launch into a particular subservice and have a budget price release supported by microtransactions. That does seem to be an approach that's worked for Rocket League. It certainly worked for Knockout City. So
I think you can almost guarantee in a year or so it will go free to play once the audience starts to dwindle, if it does start to dwindle. But, Rocket League went free to play, so that even with Rocket League, that was like a huge hit, they recognized they could get more people if it was free to play, and why wouldn't you do that when the numbers have dropped?
But they guaranteed themselves with their PlayStation Plus deal and their initial sales the return of their investment on their development costs, and then to ensure longevity made the switch. I think, as opposed to, I don't think that was just about profitability. Obviously that's a huge factor. They then could monetize it in a different way, but I think that ensured a healthy player base once your initial early adopters had been exhausted.
I mean, the customization side as well has got huge potential, just in terms of the footballing world. Like Rocket League kind of has to do car partnerships, or there's lots of film tie-ins and stuff, but in terms of the sheer number of football tie-ins that they could do with all the licenses for the teams and proper football shirts and stuff, like, it's crazy the amount of money they could make out of this if they do the monetization properly. If
they start going down the route like a football club and they have like big sponsors as well, and we get like brand deals within this, you could definitely see like how Prime sponsors Arsenal, you could see like how a major brand could end up tying in with the game, and they do that as part of a promotion. Very easy for them to create like themed DLC around that, which again, it's a monetization stream that can be very easily ignored. I don't feel personally like I'm missing out by not having the battle pass that's paid right now. I don't think I'm as that invested in the customization that I need that. Whereas something like the finals, where I really like tweaking my character, I like those customization options, and that works for me. But then that's a completely free to play game, and one that's been not too egregiously monetized either. It's pretty reasonable. So
I do have a slight concern in terms of the state the game is launched in, which is good. Like, it's good. It's not launched in a bad state or anything. But with the crossplay issue and some of the polish, whether they will have the capacity to actually make the most of the player base that's there at the moment in terms of getting those customizations out. So I feel like with Rocket League, that was the Epic part. That was why you go with Epic, because they take care. They just make you shitloads of money because you've got a player base in your game. They can bring that expertise, and I feel like there's a risk that for, say, this first 6 months or year or 2 years or however long, like the honeymoon period is, that we don't really see those partnerships come in, and the customization. Like, I'm not asking for like horrific monetization of the game or anything, but I just think, as a developer like that, you need to take advantage of it while you can.
It creates a news beat as well for you in your cycle of promotion. It's another step towards creating awareness for your game, and also getting people excited if it's a brand or a person that they're really invested in.
And it doesn't help that they're going to have to fix these issues, which you would think will take like 3 months until the game's in a state that they would be happy with before they'll even presumably start to look at that stuff. Overall, I don't want to be negative about the game. It's great.
No, it is, and my hope is that when Season 1 drops, that we have crossplay launching with it, so that there's a sort of another sort of big push there that will definitely bring people in. I know there are people holding off right now. I've got some buddies of mine that are planning to play with me, but on PS5 that are waiting before they do that, which is really cool. Game with Passion on YouTube. I'm frustrated at my teammates as well. They fucking suck 90% of the time, especially in the past 3 days. Yeah, because I imagine there's lots of influx of new players as they're discovering it organically online, people talking about it, having these positive reviews come out. There's definitely going to be a lot of newer players or people that just don't understand how to win at that game and how to be, synergistic.
I read Eurogamer's article about it, which was very effusive with praise, but it was making the point that a lot of people won't be into soccer that are playing, or football that are playing the game. Especially the people on Game Pass, which is an American audience primarily. Right. They'll be coming in. It's like there's a free game, lots of people playing it. I've seen people streaming it, and they won't understand in the same way as someone who watches football will understand. Like, you need to stand over here in the space. You need to mark players defensively.
You've got to make a run.
I'm going to get the ball. I'm going to do skill moves.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of that. Like, I think from watching football a lot, I do look at it a bit tactically compared to Rocket League. Like, you can definitely treat it as if you're playing or watching a real football match and take it in the same way. Like, you think, I need to stay back here because they've got a guy up, and I actually can't think of a time where I've seen another player on my team make that decision that they're going to stay back and watch their forward player, that everyone just bombs forward.
Yeah, and that is definitely, I think, one major positive for the game. Is certainly in relation to Rocket League, where there's a lot of, it's very accessible. At its basic level, Rocket League can be played very simply, but there's a lot of nuance to its mechanics, especially when you start factoring in wall and air game and people doing like the dribbling in the air and all of that. Rematch offers that too, I think, but in a tactical sense. It allows you that if you are invested in football generally, for you to consider the importance of either marking players, pulling back when needed, making runs, playing through balls, all those things that perhaps at face value they're not taught in the tutorial, they're not mentioned in any of the mechanics or tooltips, but something that definitely enhances the quality of your game and the results from your games if you are playing synergistically as a team. And there is that nice layer of advanced skill that the game affords, while still, I think, being, despite the fact that the controls, I think, there's quite a learning curve there. Fundamentally, you can just run around and bounce it off the arena wall and volley it,
I was just thinking, it's so funny. Like, we'll have times where, like, someone else will be in goal and they'll dive over the ball, and we'll be like, "This fucking guy's useless," and then one of us will go in goal and we'll do the exact same thing because there's just. We're new at the game, and it's really easy to make horrible mistakes.
I'm really hitting that D-pad right to say sorry to a lot in this, which is
the number of people that do that and then quit instantly is really funny as well.
I saw one the other day. My team, we were 3-0 down, so the mercy rule's about to kick in if we concede one more goal. The goalkeeper, when he got past the ball from the centre, just straight up turned around and scored an own goal. And it ended the game. He was so furious, and all the players just like blinked out of existence. They just were gone. So definitely landed for us, and hopefully that'll be something we can check in on as those, as crossplay gets added. We'll kind of keep up to date with it through System Link, and we'll definitely share our impressions as it continues to evolve.
Hopefully stream it.
Oh, I'd love that. A bit of Burly Bird Live going on. Get some Rematch going. We'll try and plant a flag on that this Saturday if we can make that work. So another game that has received extremely positive reviews, especially from a technical perspective, as well as in terms of its overall polish, has been Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding 2 from Kojima Productions. I saw a really crazy side-by-side of the character model of Norman Reedus from Death Stranding 1 to Death Stranding 2. And the upgrade in the Decima engine is sort of like a kind of generational leap levels of upgrade. And this was, it was a PS4 title, so the original, and obviously now we're on PS5, but the Decima engine showing its versatility and how well polished it is, used currently or developed by Guerrilla Games, who make the Horizon games. They've got a deal with Kojima Productions to share that engine, which is, I think, partly because of the second party link, that it is sort of a timed exclusive.
I've got to say, it's nice to not have an Unreal Engine game that's in the headlines. I've got getting a bit of Unreal Engine fatigue. As good as it is for like speeding up development and stuff, I'm starting to, like we had, I think, on PS3 and Xbox 360, so many games were using it that you start to just notice, I think, a bit that they're using.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're sharing assets or it's just got a look about it in
Yes.
some cases.
And that's where
So
I
it's,
think
yeah,
that's
I appreciate this.
Yeah, it's where Death Stranding 2, I think, has been very arresting for people because it's surprised them. It's been very, I've seen some absolutely bonkers clips from it being shared online. Not major spoiler stuff, but just things where the gameplay sequences are really unhinged and really deliberately quirky and abstract. And I think that's a really leaning into its weirdness. I'm actually really glad to see that they've lent into what makes that game so odd and so weird. Haven't played the second one yet. I played quite a bit of the first one. It's, I think, certainly from a visual standpoint and an iterative standpoint, they have really taken some swings there, and that seems to be where it's connecting with people. So,
Oh, that's good. I mean, it wouldn't be a Kojima game if it wasn't a bit weird. I played a fair amount of the first one. I think it was just not the sort of game I was looking for at the time. Like, I put a few hours into it, and it's very impressive technically. And I can see why some people do get kind of hooked on it, but it was just I needed something a bit more pacey
yeah,
and like a narrative. It's like, you're expected to do a lot on your own and just explore almost, or be satisfied with the kind of journey that you're on, which in a certain mood is absolutely what I'm after. But yeah, not at the moment, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on.
for sure. Some interesting stats coming out from the Switch 2 launch. Obviously, now we've had the dust has settled on that a little bit. We've been able to get that ridiculous confirmation of the 3.5 million sales in 72 hours, which is just unbelievable. Fastest selling console of all time, which is, incredible. Interesting to see that it doesn't seem to be in short supply either. You can walk into a shop and buy one.
So you wonder how much, because I'm trying to think of a Nintendo console that didn't sell out at launch. So you wonder how much is it that they delayed the. Well, we feel like they delayed the launch a bit to get the stock in a better place, maybe.
Yeah. Which is not a move they typically make.
Them...
Normally there's 6 months worth of nightmarish attempts to
and
try and get hold of one.
I feel like they enjoy that, or that's almost part of their strategy is to have it in short supply.
Mario 3D All-Stars being the most egregious example. It was certainly sold out from a pre-order perspective, like right leading up to launch, unless you were getting some crazy bundle, you couldn't.
But then they literally released stock on launch day, didn't they? So you could turn up at midnight and you would probably get one, I think.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Like the pre-sale stuff had sold out of its allocation, but they'd clearly produced enough and then allocated enough for launch day and beyond. And you can, pick one up. The fact that it is landed so confidently is really interesting. Where that report around the third-party sales, Cyberpunk 2077 being the clear leader on the console, doing well there, but that generally the third-party sales were quite soft, and actually the software attach rate quite low as well. And I'm wondering if that is partially attributed to the increased cost relative to Switch 1. Most people then going for the Mario Kart World Bundle and being satiated with that. But then when you start adding in like the camera, a Pro Controller, that cost is really starting to rack up. Certainly relative to the first Switch, which was now 7-8 years ago. So I've been speculating that maybe there's an element of those third-party sales being a bit weaker and being actually, relatively speaking, quite poor, because it came down to people having to pick a lane and decide where they go.
Yeah, and I think the backwards compatibility will have hurt them in that respect, as good as it is for everyone else. You've got a library of games. Most people have got a library of games from Switch 1. I would have bought what's it called? The new Fast RMX game.
Which I did, by the way, and my God, it's so good.
Along with the bundle, but I wouldn't. I literally got zero interest in anything else until Donkey Kong. Yeah. I think if they'd have launched Donkey Kong as well as Mario Kart, which would have been bold, but I think that would have sold really well. But yeah, the third party stuff it's hard to say that you would have expected it to do particularly well unless there's a new game that hasn't been previously available.
That's the thing. When you look at the third-party releases like Street Fighter 6, Hogwarts Legacy, No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk 2077, these are all games that are, in some cases, years old.
I know.
and they're getting
What do you
Switch 2
expect?
versions. What did you expect? You know, people have probably bought and played those games elsewhere, or can access them on a sub-service. PS Plus, GeForce
Yeah, I mean,
Now, Game Pass.
the only ones that I would have thought is say they had Call of Duty on it, which I know Microsoft's supposed to be working on, or FIFA. I don't think you can get a FIFA on Switch anymore, can you? Or whether you've ever been able to. But
Used
something
to.
like a one of the big games that you haven't been able to get for a few years on Switch that now, with the new power, those are the only things that I think would have cut through that people haven't been able to play. And there's a real benefit to having a portable aspect for
Yeah.
playing, especially FIFA, but also like Call of Duty, I guess, for some people. But yeah, games that are years old that have been playable on, in some cases, the last generation of other consoles is it's a bit of a tough sell for a lot of people.
Cyberpunk, I think, being it's on the cartridge, it included Phantom Liberty. There had been some updates to it. It supported DLSS and was running looking and running really well. I think it attracted people to it because of the idea of playing that game in a polished state on a handheld. That ticked boxes, and I think that's where it landed. Hogwarts Legacy obviously sold phenomenally well, but I do think that audience that was going to buy that game bought it, and were probably, for those that bought it on Switch 1, were a little burned by how poor that port was. So it's unlikely they would have then double dipped, having already played it on the first console. They'd have gone elsewhere, most likely to play that game.
And I think with those, it really helps if you've got DLC.
Yes.
So I must own like 4 different versions of Skyrim on different consoles, and we got the Switch one, and like knowing that there's all the extra content on the cartridge, really, you're not just buying the same game that you bought 4 times already. It helps with that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of key dates that have been revealed, a couple of announcements obviously now coming up for PS Plus as well. And we've got Hellblade 2 getting its PS5 launch date August 12th. There's a free update for the Xbox and PC versions as well, which includes all of the various optimizations. 60 frames per second performance mode being added to the Xbox Series X version only, not on S. Couldn't get that running on there. I do think this, we are starting to cement, certainly in my mind, that we're going to get a single SKU next gen. If it's I don't think we're going to get a split situation. It's going to be the next Xbox is the thing we get. I don't see a Series X and X scenario happening again. I think Maniac's ready for that if they do. We are also getting Little Nightmares 3 coming out on October 10th. I am very much looking forward to that. I'm hoping I have not conflated it with another game, which I'm thinking of Animal. Little Nightmares 3 is co-op, isn't it?
Yeah,
I believe so, and I'm so excited for Little Nightmares 3. I think that we've got some potential for some streaming jolliness there as well, mentioning Rematch earlier, but I think this could be a really good one to get out there on a co-op stream. So a couple of key dates dropping into place just for the back half of this year now, which is really nice, coming out of Summer Game Fest. I imagine with August Gamescom rapidly approaching, we're going to start seeing some more flags planted and some dates sort of to lock down things that didn't make it into Jeff Showcase or any of the other events throughout that week. And also the PS Plus games for July have been revealed. So Diablo 4 being added in, there's a really nice one. Jusant as well, really, really great Xbox Game Pass get there, so that's being added there too. Generally speaking, quite a strong month. There was an interview recently I saw about how they've seen sort of good growth in PlayStation Plus since they've been making some adjustments. We've seen more indie games launch day one. FBC Firebreaker's just dropped in there as well, and Game Pass day one. So they're definitely, it's building. The tiers have helped, I think, after it stagnated a little bit. So although they're not committing to day one releases, they're still sort of allowing them their exclusives to be on, out for at least a year before they drop into the sub-service. They seem to have found a middle ground that works for them, with the PC releases coming pretty fast too. So that's just a kind of rapid fire. We're getting a few dates coming in for things and a few confirmations of stuff coming up in the next few months.
Yeah, funny to see Diablo on PlayStation Plus. I wonder exactly how that the fee for that, or I don't know. Interesting. But because obviously, was it MLB was on Game Pass for a while because of the weirdness around the license and stuff.
That's right.
That meant that would happen. But I don't know if we've had any Xbox games on PlayStation Plus.
Interesting, a tricky one too, because Diablo was already multi-platform before the buyout. So again, it's one of those weird it was already PS5, Xbox. It was already everywhere before Activision Blizzard deal finally was approved.
But the money that presumably PlayStation Pay is going to be going.
It's going to be going
Microsoft.
now technically to Microsoft. Yeah, it's a really strange one, isn't it? It's just another sort of wonky generation that we've had for acquisitions and certain titles are being released in certain ways. It's been a strange one. I will say that. Some things that we thought would never happen have definitely happened.
Yeah.
So. We also have, speaking of things that I wasn't expecting, Xbox have never really they've shied away from VR generally. We've seen some augmented reality stuff with HoloLens, but never really dipped a toe in it. They've never really sort of backed a horse in that race. And up until this point, the Vive had always been the sort of main thing on PC, obviously with the MetaQuest as well. We now have an Xbox branded MetaQuest, which I'm not seeing it anything sort of specifically Xbox other than branding and access to the Game Pass app on it.
Yeah.
It seems
a bit of a weird one.
I don't look at it in the same category as the Xbox Ally X, which does feel a little more like an Xbox device partner with Asus, but this one with the same marketing campaign as the ROG Ally saying this is an Xbox, I felt like going, no, it's not. No, I get your concept. I don't think that is.
I mean,
really...
sadly it does fit with the this is an Xbox campaign because the argument is you can play Game Pass games on it, so it's an Xbox.
Yeah.
But there's no VR stuff. So you're playing whatever it is where you've got a big screen on your headset, which is just like,
and it creates the perspective as if you're in like an IMAX or something like that. That's the concept. So I mean, from a branding point of view, I get it. It's tying in with their campaign, but the notion of it actually meaningfully offering an Xbox experience that's unique to VR is, I don't think, the case here. But this is, if they want to build the brand and they try to be everywhere, there is a certain ubiquity to that. The idea that, if they now drop like a streaming stick or something, which I feel like has kind of been shelved a bit now, we've got the Ally coming out, that we are starting to see the brand expand itself, and that is probably healthy, I think, for its longevity, while still offering an option of a native console experience.
Yeah, it's all about the branding for me. Like, there'll be a bit of brand awareness for the partnership more than probably there'll be a few people that will think it's cool and buy it, but I think it's just one of those, as you see Xbox often enough in all these partnerships, especially if you're a PC gamer. It's just good for marketing. I was a bit sad about HoloLens. Like, I thought that was a genuinely cool idea, and I think a lot of people did. And it felt like one of the bad things that Microsoft have killed, and there's been a few of them. I would have liked them to throw some money at that and try and make it work, but there we go.
Yeah, because Peter Molyneux's waited in the wings for Milo and Kate to resurge itself, and that would have probably been a nice HoloLens experience. But we also have to forget, we can never forget the cursed Conker tech demo of HoloLens, where it's that sort of horrible Microsoft Paint abomination of that character.
But hey, it was Conker. Come on.
But it was Conker. We got a little something. It was that and Project Spark, wasn't it? It's the last time that character has ever seen the light of day. Oh, justice for Conker. So we're kind of looking now, sort of switching gears a bit, kind of ending our podcast tonight on a little bit of a downer. The industry continues to struggle to maintain both its capacity in its workforce and also to mitigate against poor management from the top level, from its budgeting to the scaling up of teams, perhaps bloating beyond what they should. A report recently coming out that Build a Rocket Boy, developer of the recently released Mindseye, is in fact going to be reducing a significant portion of its dev team, most likely in response to the poor reception and poor sales of that game. I don't think it's fair to say that this was a planned thing for them. I don't think that was always the intention, especially with a partnership like with IOI. You'd think that would have certainly secured their future, at least temporarily.
Yeah, and we were talking about it last time. They seemed to view this as an ongoing, it was relying heavily on player support, but also something they were going to develop and build the world around. So I'm sure the reception has been a setback for them. But at the same time, hard to imagine it came as a surprise. Like, did they genuinely think it was going to land and like set the world on
It's the
fire?
QA problem, isn't it? Did they really think that that had been through testing enough to think that that was ready to go out there with the ambition as a studio's first title, despite the creative lead's pedigree? This was not ready. It wasn't ready to launch, and given the ambition of the thing, just needed someone to say this needs another 6 months in the oven. Maybe it was a case of that they had to pull the trigger. There might have been if we're talking about redundancies this close to launch, that suggests to me it was like, well, we need some revenue. We need to start recouping some costs, so let's get this thing out the door, patch it later. But then the damage is done. I don't know. It's a tough one. Regardless, I hope those devs land on their feet. The one actually that's the most egregious to me was these rumoured Xbox job cuts. This would be the third round of Microsoft Xbox cuts, which is a significant percentage of people that would have originally been assigned to the brand. I saw the article on The Verge talking about how it's actually to do with their European distribution, which did give me pause for a moment.
In addition to, like, I think there's going to be worldwide cuts, but the stuff that's been kind of leaked in a concrete sense is the European distribution. So it sounds as though, and we had this with Xbox One a bit, that there'll be certain markets where it disappears from, or you have to order it from other territories.
Yeah.
Or what? Because when I was working at Xbox, they had a big push to localize it into as many different European countries as possible, and it was quite good. In terms of the dashboard was fully localized in a lot of different places, not with Connect, but in terms of text and stuff, and everything was translated. But that was kind of quite a new thing, or it certainly took a lot of effort. So it wouldn't surprise me if they start to dial some of that back, especially. They were doing a big push because they thought that Kinect was going to work, and they thought that after the 360, the Xbox One would be an equivalent level of success. Yeah, it was a safe bet, and that's not. I think they've accepted that they're never going to be in that position now, and if they want to cut through to Europe and the kind of other European markets that aren't like UK and Germany, then they will have to do that through publishing on other platforms. So I think they'll just accept that the hardware isn't the way to go, and even maybe services isn't even the way to go in those markets, and they're just going to focus on their presence on PlayStation maybe. But it's a concerning one. I think there's naturally going to still be redundancies relating to physical media and distribution, because that's we're not going to have a console for probably another couple of years, so there's limited hardware that's going anywhere. They're obviously working with third parties on the ROG Ally. Whether we see something similar for the next console, it wouldn't surprise me if they're just starting to wind down some of the hardware infrastructure, which is obviously significant in a lot of those European markets as well.
And also just in terms of longevity for the brand, this is clearly going to be a major pivot in response to the market. I do think in some ways Xbox are quite ahead of the curve. The unfortunate reality of that is that foresight is sort of the short-term pain, long-term gain approach that they're kind of doubling down on here, and that is leaving us in this position where yet again we're in another round of cuts that do appear, I think, on the one hand, very easy to view this as sort of a step forward, step back moment, when we're getting the great Game Pass cadence. Now we're hitting you with the third round of layoffs, which is again just a negative PR beat. Never a good time to announce this. There's never a good moment to make this happen. It's a tough one. And unclear what that's going to be moving forward.
They've always had layoffs, like especially when the business is in a bit of a negative space. But I guess that the thing now is, I don't know, because Microsoft is so sensitive about releasing any meaningful data about their business and about Xbox especially. All you ever hear is positive stuff about Xbox from Microsoft, and it's like highest concurrent players, all this bullshit. You never get, and like when Sony talk to their shareholders, you feel like it's a bit more genuine. Like they'll comment
because also
on
we've sold this many
down
consoles. Yeah, we've commented on this many sales. Yes, PS Plus has stagnated for a bit, but the new tiers have caused a resurgence. Here's what our first party are working on. Here's the release calendar. It's very black and white, isn't it? It's very, very clear.
It's just like factual.
Yeah.
Whereas the Xbox One, obviously, it's not. They're not lying, but it's very much.
But it's omitted, isn't
presented
it? It's
always in a really positive light.
Yeah.
And then you get people on X or whatever that are kind of going into it and trying to get negatives out because they're trying to be fanboys. But they need something in the middle, which really is just the reality of the situation. I would really just like they could say, you know, because hardware sales have been crap for Xbox for ages, but they never comment on that and say, you know, a hardware division is down by 10%. You never get any specifics of like in Europe it's down like 90% or 200% or you know it's
which is strange, isn't it? Because like they don't want to give you those, like they don't want to present those optics, but they're happy for this to be the thing that is discussed. That it's you know, yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Really, really bizarre. It's proof's going to be as this gen winds down. I think next gen is such an interesting place that we'll find these companies. What that means for them scaling up or down certain aspects of their businesses, especially if the move away from physical is mandating a lot of these changes. Definitely a future chat.
Well, we keep hearing about. It felt like after Summer Showcase, where we had the ROG Ally, but there were the rumors about the handheld, the Xbox own handheld had kind of been shelved. And then after that, we had obviously Sarah Bond come out and talk about hardware in a more meaningful way.
Yeah.
It's that almost just doesn't seem to make sense anymore with everything else that you hear from Xbox and the showcase, and it's like their strategy seems to be not a hardware strategy anymore. And then all you have is Sarah Bond coming out and saying, "Yeah, we're doing hardware. Don't worry, guys." But it's like I am starting to have the doubts that people had like a year or 18 months ago that Xbox weren't going to do hardware anymore. I don't know. It's starting to make more and more sense. To me.
I think they do. I think we do see another console from the next gen. I think that is they're developing it. I think it doesn't get shelved. It happens. It's one SKU. I'm more and more confident of that now. I think it's digital, and I think it could potentially be one of their last pieces of like traditional console hardware. What we see from their hardware division is going to move closer to PC. That's their growth market for the sub. It's where they've pointed to consistently with their decision making, and I think that's where they're gonna end up. So, folks. Oh, Jess, coming into Twitch chat. Jess hardly knows. Good to see you. Folks, that will about wrap it up for this latest episode of System Link here at Burly Bird Media. Thank you again, as always, Mike, for joining us. Where can people find you?
They can find me at theXboxGuide.com and the Xbox Guide on Threads and Blue Sky.
Lovely, folks. Please do consider jumping into our Discord at Burly Bird Media with the same on all of our platforms. Please do jump in and check out the conversation that's over there. We've got a lovely community there. And, folks, we will see you next time.
See ya.